Hello, this is Brandy Rose Smith, live in the Forbidden Library. Welcome to another Sunday story time, where we'll be reading the book I wrote many years ago now, with my blood, sweat, and tears, Moongirl 1 Moonrise, which I have the discount code for on most of my streams. Ha 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 ha. You can get it for cheaps for being my fans. But anyway, I can't think of anything other than starting the recap. Because we are 26% of the way through. It probably means this is only going to last 4 streams, which makes sense because the first one goes kind of short. It's a nice short and sweet introduction to the series. So it starts off with a character called Dreda Toth, who she just wants a job. She doesn't have any superpowers in this world where a lot of people have been waking up with superpowers somewhat randomly. And she handed her CV in, and she got an interview at this office, and they were going to train her up, and everything was going to be great. And then she got there, and then there was a supervillain on the other side of the desk, and he was hiring for hostages, it seems. So she ends up in a hostage situation. This guy keeps people in illusionary prisons, so it looks like she's on the moon. It's really weird. And eventually the villain comes out, and she's like, yeah, nah. And she beats him up. She breaks both of his arms and knocks him out. And there's this other guy who was like, yeah, I can get us out. So he calls the vans, and this other hero turns up called Dark Tornado, and she directs the hostages out and brings Dreda into a separate van with her and the guy who called the heroes. And they go, well, you're crazy, just crazy enough to be a hero. And she goes, wait, what? I broke a man's arms. Is that hero material? I was like, yes, it is, apparently. So they take her back to Hero HQ because they don't want to have any extra info on her. Because, the less they know, the better. You don't want to make her vulnerable to supervillain attacks, especially if supervillains can read minds. It's possible, it happens. So she has to go into a cool training simulation thingamajig that will pick up whether she has any powers and how tough she is, and give her a score between 0 and 100. And her superpower score, trick score, comes out as 0, and her I can beat people up score comes out as 80 something. I can't remember specifically. And it's super high, and they're like, oh wow, she's so badass. So she gets accepted in. And then she's coming the next day. She's had to think of a fake name. She goes by Rosa Hale now. At least to her allies, because of the whole, just in case people can mind read thing. And then the person who had the highest combat score before her, an American, I forgot I made them American. So you'll get my terrible American accent again today. Has barged her way in and gone, hey you, higher combat score, fight me. And Dreda's like, oh yeah, I also understand the combat junkie language. I will fight you. So now they are going to fight. And this is where we continue with the wild is wild. Let's go. The first move of a fight is so very, very important. It can lead to people standing there, staring the other down, reluctant to take the risk of the first move. People do this because attacks can leave you open. Counterattacks can be hard to deal with, and most don't have the reaction times or aren't fluid enough in their fighting style to deal with it. It can lead to battles being as much about patience as it is strength. But not when your combat level is above 70. When you have 30 levels between you and max, you become an artist of the battlefield, and watching 2 artists clash like this is a spectacular sight. Dreda knew enough about Selena to be able to easily predict that she was going to be the first to move. Despite just meeting her today, everything about Selena's action told her that the brash Wilder was going to throw the first punch. A textbook boxer's punch aimed at the face. Dreda leaned to the side, and Selena's first shot past her face. Selena's fist shot past her face. A rush of wind by Drada's ear. She countered with a sweep kick, and this told Selena quite a lot about Drada in a single action. She liked to end things quickly. Taking out someone's footing could win you a fight right there and then. Since this wasn't a death match, when one of them hits the floor, they will probably call it a match. Well, most would. With these two, it would likely depend on who can't find the strength to get back up again. It was likely that going to be a test of stamina more than anything. Still, as Selena jumped up over Drada's leg, it led her to assume Drada liked to fight, but she wasn't used to fighting for fun. In a battle for life and death, it didn't make sense to prolong it. There were too many variables, too much that you couldn't control in your surroundings, let alone the person you're actually fighting. For the sake of self-preservation, threats had to be taken care of quickly, to remove the possibility of random chance causing a person to lose their life. It led Selena to a number of conclusions, the main one being that Drada's fighting style was based around lethal moves. That was great when it came to life and death, but knowing Drada didn't want to kill her meant she'd have to hold back. Selena smiled. She could still win this despite the difference in their combat scores. It was because of the fact Drada's usual style was to kill her opponent as quickly as possible that she couldn't let her mind just melt away like normal. If she did, on instincts, she would either seriously injure or kill Selena. It's not like she wanted to kill Selena, it's just that she had never fought someone she couldn't kill before. She never had to hesitate or had to think before about snapping a neck. As much as fighting Selena was going to be fun, it was going to be hard and frustrating. But not killing an enemy was something she was going to have to get used to. It happened by accident a few times, but heroes never purposely killed villains. For the sake of one less death, she supposed. So Selena was Drada's ticket to learning to fight rather than kill. As Selena landed and threw a kick at the crouching Drada, who used her bent leg to hop back behind the blue-haired woman out of range of the attack, she got her balance back, doing her best to push away all the frustration and focus. She was going to win this. Killing moves or not, she was going to win this. As she expected, Selena moved forward, getting some distance as she turned to face Drada, not letting her opponent close enough to make an attack while her back was turned. This could have easily turned into another Western showdown moment, but Drada didn't give it time, darting for Selena before she had completely turned round. Selena just about turned enough to see her coming, but halfway through turning herself, her footing wasn't right. Drada returned the textbook boxer punch to the face, while Selena managed to dodge it. The dodge caused her to slip, ending up on her hands and knees, but Drada behind her again. Without another thought, she kicked her legs up, forcing Drada to lean back as Selena cartwheeled to get some distance. Drada wasn't letting that happen though. As soon as Selena's legs were out of the way, she darted after the cartwheel. Selena really pushed with her arms and got to her feet faster than expected, but not fast enough. She didn't have her footing back completely when another sweep kick came her way. She managed to jump again to dodge the repeated attack, but she was at a weird angle. Selena stumbled as she landed, not having enough time to get her balance, but Drada shot her leg back from her crouched position, hitting the tall Wilder in the hip, successfully keeping her off balance. It was back to that slow motion gamble now, back to that shaky what if that could cost you everything. Could Drada get up again and land a hit before Selena could recover her balance? The name of the game now was speed, so obviously Drada went for her quickest option. She got her foot on the ground again and pushed herself up with both arms, using a lot of strength to push her right to her feet. By this point, she could see Selena was close to having her balance back, so as quickly as she could, she threw her fist. Originally, for a hurtful kidney shot that might cause a lot of damage, but last minute she changed her course for a less harmful winding shot. Selena had been close, so very, very close to being able to get out of the way, but very, very close wasn't enough. Drada's fist ploughed into her stomach. Selena's breath evacuated her lungs, and the next thing she knew, she was on the floor. Drada stayed on her guard, watching and waiting to see if Selena would get up again, but she stayed on her back, trying to get her breath back. Told ya! Told ya! Lani jumped up and down from the bench and clapped. Pandora was staring, completely speechless. Drada glanced at the young girls before back to Selena. I didn't hit you too hard, did I? She asked, still a little worried that she didn't hold back enough. American. Fine, he's American. No, I'm fine. What the hell is that? I don't know. Selena laughed, or coughed. It was hard to tell as she reached out her hand, and Drada helped her up. You did pretty well holding back like that. Thanks for not going for my kidneys. I'm really sorry to all America for this. She held back? Pandora was now on her feet and darted over. You held back? I've never seen my sister... I've never seen my sister beaten in a fair fight. You just did, and you held back? Yeah. Drada looked away from her, not sure what to say. Pan, calm down. I'll beat her one day. The older sister placed her hand on the head of the other wilder and rubbed it, knowing full well she hated it. I look forward to it. Drada smiled, and the two warriors gave a nod. Pandora tilted her head and pouted, muttering about how impossible that was and how she didn't have to be patted. I would say it would carry on, but you don't have a change of clothes, and Claire will kill us if you end up too injured. Do you get injured a lot while training? Selena asked, curious. I don't. Selena smirked. Everyone else does. Lani grinned. With a smirk, Selena led Drada out. Train hard and maybe you won't get as hurt. She threw the words of wisdom over her shoulder as they left. Are they not coming with us? Drada asked as the door to the gym closed, closed behind them, leaving Lani and the younger wilder behind. Nah. Technically it's their turn for training in there now, but I asked to borrow for a bit once I found out about you. You? What was that? Someone's Scottish at the end. Oh. I'm glad I watched the Scary Game Boys before this, because I have some reference now in my head. Drada nodded as she was led back through the room with the sofas and TVs, and through the door she saw Claire leave through before. So, Selena stopped in the hallway of doors. And there's our infirmary. Always someone there to patch you up after a scrape. Or you can go for a nap if you're tired. I'm getting really southern, aren't I? Fine. She's gonna be from all over America. Family traveled. Fine. It's just a traveling thing. It's fine. Everything's fine. Useful, Drada noted, imagining it would be hard to explain some of their injuries in normal hospitals. That one's kinda officey, library kind of area. Paper, pens, computers, little private rooms for some peace and quiet. It's Claire's normal haunt, if she's in, and you ever need to find her. Again, Drada nodded. And lastly, well, Drada looked to the last of the doors she was referring to. It was a big metal door, very different to any of the normal wooden doors so far. On it was a sign, a silly one, a piece of paper taped up with a drawing of a black bird. It said, Batcave? Drada read. Also known as Tim's Nerd Room, or the server room officially. I take it you and your sister are found more often around the gym? Drada asked, since she was being told the usual haunts of Tim and Claire. Claire's haunt. It's funny if you know other things. Yeah, pretty much. Selena nodded and walked past the Batcave to the officey library room. Lanny floats about, literally sometimes, but I can't see why you would need to track her down. Just expect to randomly bump into her a lot. Are there any others I should know about? Drada asked as Selena opened the door. Not that I'm on patrol right now. I when I was writing this, I didn't know about any other heroes, or I had only a vague sense of them. Selena replied as the officey library room was opened. Drada wasn't sure why Selena called it an officey room, because it was clearly a library. A few shelves of books, a couple of desks, a comfy seat or two, and 3 side rooms. You two are in suspiciously good shape, Claire noted, looking out from a thick, factual-looking book she was reading. See, I can be good. Stopped it just before either of us got injured. Selena crossed her arms in front of her. So you can act like an adult, Claire smirked as she slapped the 2 halves of the book together and placed it down. I have to look after Pandora, don't I? Selena started to pout like a child. Yes, Claire laughed. I'm sorry. I don't give you enough credit, Selena. You should realize my awesomeness by now. I have got this accent down. I am proud of myself. She's southern, but I don't care. It's American. The Wilder struck a pose, and Drada was sat there wondering when Claire was going to do something odd, since everyone here seemed a little insane. But then she remembered insanity is how she got the job in the first place, so she guessed she shouldn't be surprised. Anyway, Rosa, Selena deflated at being completely brushed aside as Claire picked up a black plastic rectangle from the desk she had been reading at. I assume Selena showed you the rest of the place? I have a rough idea, yeah? Drada nodded. Okay then, she brought the plastic rectangle up for her to see. On this laptop is all the information you'll need to look through. Like I said before, it's a lot, but you can take as much time as you need. Claire held the folded laptop out for Drada to take, but the girl just stared at it. Drop the glasses. Glasses! Come back! There it is. She said quietly, biting her lip before eventually looking away and asking, how do I use it? Poor baby. You don't know? Claire asked with a concerned frown. You're not that old. Did you use computers in school? Selena asked. No, I didn't go to school. How'd you get away with that? I mean, me and Pan tried, but no luck. Kept getting dragged back. Selena asked, not looking confused, rather impressed. I guess I didn't have a life until 3 years ago. Can we keep it at that? The atmosphere in the room dropped like gravity had doubled. A thick silence took over the 3. Even when a person doesn't want to talk about something, and even when you don't press for answers, the mind can't help but wonder. Selena's, though not asking, was theorizing, thinking maybe she meant memory loss, or maybe there was something she wanted to forget. Claire's, on the other hand, was putting it together. Do you mind leaving us, Selena? Claire said in an authoritative tone, stopping Selena from wondering. No, it's fine. It's nothing. Drada panicked. No, it's not. Claire interrupted her firmly. Selena. She snapped. Going. I forgot my accent. Going. The Wilder threw up her hands in surrender as she put her curiosity aside and left. Claire, I don't want to talk about it. Dreda tried to stop it again. Claire ignored her, walking back and putting the laptop on the desk before turning to face Rosa. I know you don't. And I'm sorry to make you, but I need to know. Claire sighed. She honestly didn't want to bring up any memories for Dreda, especially if it was what she thought it was, but she had to know. There was no way she could just sit and wonder. By 3 years ago. You meant when I saved you, don't you? Dreda nodded. And I'm sorry to be blunt, but are you the one I saved from those horrible tests? Dreda locked eyes with Claire for a moment, and the gaze was so intense that she had to look away again. It wasn't pressure to answer, it was concern behind Claire's eyes. Dreda could tell by that look that Claire had never forgotten where she saved the Dreda from, never let go of the images and events that carried out. Dreda nodded, and the next thing she heard were the distinctive heels march towards her. She only had time to look up before Claire's arms wrapped around her. I'm so sorry. Dreda tensed up as she was held tightly in Claire's arms. So much personal contact was not really what Dreda was used to, unless she was beating someone up, but this... it was nice. Knowing that she had been in her hero's thoughts this whole time, that she was never forgotten, but... What are you sorry for? She asked as she did everything she could to pull back the emotions threatening to overflow. For it happening in the first place, and for not getting there sooner. The woman tightened again. Dreda had to admit she didn't know what to think. She'd become numb to the memories. It happened. After a while, Dreda just stopped feeling anything about it. Especially when she had other things to learn, like cooking and cleaning and looking after a cat. She had a new life. The other was always there. A shadow, meaning she could look into the darkness without hesitation, but she struggled with the norm because of it. And Claire stopped herself from saying anything more, and Dreda began to get worried. And what? Claire finally released her and looked Dreda in the eyes. Do you want to know more about the event, or would you rather move on? Dreda went to open her mouth, but nothing came out. She wanted to say no. She wanted to just move on with her life. It happened, that's that, but maybe? Was the answer that left her mouth, and she hated it. She'd been so sure she was over it all, that she could focus on her new life, but now the offer was there. She realized there was a few things she needed an answer to. Claire nodded, walking away and opening the laptop. The screen illuminated the brunette's face, and she started typing. I tell you what, I've been gathering as much information as I could since I saved you. I'll put everything I have on here in a folder called 3 with password Mist Moon. Can you remember that? Yeah. Dreda nodded. It'll be there. You don't have to look at it, but if you ever want to, it'll be there. After a few minutes, she closed the laptop again. Right then. Until then, you have plenty of reading to keep your mind off things. Claire said, effectively lifting the dark atmosphere with a smile, and held the laptop out for Dreda, who just stared at it. What about the original problem? The whole not being able to use a computer thing. Original? Oh, yes! God, I feel so stupid for forgetting. The woman scolded herself. It's fine. Dreda gave a small smile A topic like the one they were just on can make anyone forget stuff like that. Take this and come with me, Claire ordered, and Dreda did as her senior said. She was led, laptop in hand, to the door of the Bat Cave. Tim! She called as she opened the heavy metal door. Typically, server rooms were very, very hot rooms. So many machines doing so many processes quickly made offices turn into saunas. Having it as someone's haunt was pretty weird, as it was about as nice as being locked in a car in summer. But no such heat spilled from the room. In fact, it was quite cool. And at the other end of the room, Dreda's first sight of was Dreda's first sight of a textbook computer geek. Tim looked around from his computer, taking a swig of energy drink as his chair spun. The main light in the room was from the double monitors of the beastly machine that took up most of the space under the desk he sat at. The top of the desk was just a mess with a mouse, keyboard, and a hefty sprinkling of snack packets and empty cans. He's a messy boy. Would it kill you to clean up? Claire sighed, hands on her hips. No one else uses this room. He shrugged. Well, someone else is going to. I need you to give Rosa a hand using a laptop. Her stern, motherly tones had taken over again. Rosa tilted his head as Dreda waved. Oh, he nodded, standing up and looking at his desk. There was a desk next to him, which would have plenty of room for Dreda, but at the moment was covered in comic books. He gave a loud and annoyed sigh. I'll clean up a bit and be ready for you in a bit. He grumbled, beginning to pick up some of the rubbish. Do you want help? Dreda asked, especially since he was doing it for her benefit. Yeah, sure, he grumbled. Right then, I'll leave you to it, Rosa, if you need me. I tend to haunt that library area we were just in. If you need anything or want to talk about anything, I'll be there. Claire made sure to say. Thank you for showing me around. Dreda gave a nod, and with a small smile, Claire left her. Do I have anything interesting to say about that chapter from the author perspective? I do, actually. The fight between Dreda and Selena, I found that so hard to write. It's just, a straight-up one-on-one battle can be very hard, and in order to write that one, I actually choreographed it with stickmen on a piece of paper. If I still had it, that piece of paper, I would show you. But it was the only way I could get in my head, like, the movement and stuff like that. I don't think I did a great job in writing it anyway, to be honest, but... that's my fun fact for this chapter. I had to choreograph that fight on a piece of paper. I don't normally have to do that. Chapter 6, Case File 87. Which I think was the same as the combat level, was it not? Which is just a big coinky-dink, I'm not gonna lie. That wasn't on purpose. After overflowing the rubbish bin, carefully piling up comics and grabbing another chair, Dreda was nice and settled at Tim's side. I'm guessing if Claire sent you my way, it's tech you need help with. Tim watched Dreda trying not to smirk too obviously as she carefully opened the alien machine. I'll be honest, I have no idea what I'm doing with it. Showing her truth when she opened the laptop and just looked at it. You have a TV, right? Tim asked, taking pity. Yeah? She looked at him confused. What's the symbol on the on button for it? It's the circle thing, Dreda said, confused on why he'd bring it up, until she looked at the laptop again. Oh! Bless her little con socks. She got it. She spotted the same symbol on a button, so that turns it on. She wanted to make sure. She was still very scared it was going to break somehow. Yep, Tim answered with a sigh, trying and failing to keep his patience, so he turned to his screens and flicked his mouse. Good thing I'm playing against bots, he muttered as Drader peeked at his illuminated screens. There was a board with some image on, and that was about all Drader could fathom before a few strokes of the mouse changed everything on it. In my head, he was playing Hearthstone. You gonna turn it on? Tim glared at her. Oh, yeah. She pulled her eyes away from the flurry of colours that was the game Hack was playing and carefully pressed the button, like the machine was going to explode. Tim couldn't help it. He tried as much as he could, but a snigger escaped. What? Drader glared at him. I'm sorry, it's not a bomb. It's not gonna hurt you. I know. Drader felt heat in her face, and when the laptop lit up with logos, Tim could see her face going as red as her hair. He couldn't stop laughing once he saw that. What a meanie. Hey, stop it. It's not my fault, I don't know. Drader shouted at him, face turning redder with anger. Sweet baby. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. He took a few deep breaths to calm down, but Drader's pouty face was making it difficult. Laugh at me again and I'm shoving you off your chair, she warned. All right. He straightened his glasses, coughing to cover the last of his laughter. But I'm still surprised. I mean, you had the job hunt, right? That's all online now. How did you make a CV or anything if you can't even turn a computer on? The job center made my CV for me, and on the computers there was always some work experience kids to help. I was that work experience kid at one point. So fun fact on that one. I think, either at the time of writing this or just before, I was doing work experience at the job center, helping people who did not know how to use computers very well navigate online applications for the jobs. There's your fun fact for this chapter. / not have the patience to teach you and do it for you, which is what we did. We would get told off by some of the actual job center employees for not teaching them properly, but they never really wanted to learn, to be fair. It's kind of that thing where, you know, you tell them and they'll forget the next day, and if you just won't listen, basically. You know, old people don't want to learn new things, kind of thing. Well, we'll change that, Tim declared, now making it a personal challenge to get Drader computer competent. It ended up quite the test in patience for him, but to see someone with such a low knowledge of tech that they didn't even know how to turn a computer on bugged him. And Rosa seemed nice. He didn't think he'd mind too much. With a stretch of his arms and fingers, he let his computer go into sleep mode and taught the basics, which turned into Tim having to think of real-world things that explained computer concepts. It was a difficult challenge. Lesson number 1, log in. Which went quite smoothly when Tim realised he could explain it like having a key to your front door. It was the default ABC123 until they got in and Drader slowly typed Snickers 10, telling Hack in case she forgot. Snickers? Tim questioned, wanting to make a joke about nuts, but decided against it. My cat! Drader moved on simply, and with that they moved on. Lesson 2, File Explorer and Opening Files. This one took a lot longer. To someone who knows how to use a computer, finding and opening a file is one of the easiest things to do in the world. And showing Drader how to do it wasn't hard. Getting her to understand was harder. Tim struggled to find a way to explain in a non-computer situation, and eventually Drader got it. So it's like a chest of drawers, she said uncertainly. What do you mean? Tim didn't want to call her wrong until she explained it. Well, the files. She pointed down the list. They're all for different things, like drawers. Some for tops, some for trousers. Yeah, actually, that pretty much explains it. Tim said, impressed, and Dreda smiled at her success. You've got a drawer for heroes, a drawer for villains, and 3? Dreda couldn't help but panic when he spotted the file. What's Claire put that on for? He muttered, moving the laptop to face him and clicking it. Maybe it was a mistake, Dreda blurted out. He didn't need to know, and relief flooded her when the password prompt opened up rather than the file, opening her past for all to see. Huh, password. He went to type and Dreda panicked again. Maybe we should just leave it. I mean, I've got a lot to get through without extra, right? She said quickly, praying he'd give up. True. Tim closed the password window and pushed it back over to Dreda. You know what, to get started. Dreda nodded, holding back a sigh of relief as she hopped into the heroes file. The list wasn't too big, but there were a few names she didn't recognize. Who to start with? She glanced at him and shrugged. Why not? And she opened his file. Date of birth, 20th the 12th, 93. And yes, that's the British way round, because sod you Americans putting the month first. What do you want? It's stupid. Smallest to largest. Why would you do it any differently? Of course, you're a winter baby, she noted, also noting that he was older than her. Why are you looking at me first? He frowned. She shrugged as she had mentally to herself. Why not? Trick level 84, combat level 53. Oh, high trick level, she noted. Not the highest, he admitted. Lanny's got that title. That made Dreda's shoulders slump. Despite not having a trick of her own, she knew a thing or two about them. A trick level could be raised by hard work and practice, yes, but nothing raised it like traumatic events. There was no way to be in the 80s or 90s without something horrible putting you there. As hypocritical as it was, having just stopped him from finding out her secrets, she hoped that this file would have more information, but it was vague. It mentioned he had a history with Apex Illusionist before becoming a hero, and that he was mentored by a hero called Luck Canceller, who was sadly now deceased. She knew she shouldn't ask, but the information's really vague, she said, hoping for some more information. A lot of us have stuff we don't want to talk about. We put the bare minimum on our profiles, but also because of the whole secret identity thing, the less the better. Was what she got. Oh yeah, Dreda muttered. The whole secret identity thing not occurring to her. And so, slowly, she crawled through the records. Like with Tim's, all the background information on a person's history was vague, but information on their battle habits and the type of roles they were suited for when working in a team was quite extensive. Some things stood out, for example. Holy crap! Trick level 95. Lanny's trick level was insane. Yeah, I know, was all Tim could add after glancing at her screen to see who she was looking at. Poor girl, Dreda couldn't help but mutter as she moved on. She was at least glad to find that no one else with a higher trick level. Pandora was in her 70s, but no one else was close to Lanny and Tim. She was surprised by Claire's, though. Claire's trick level is only 25? She's good at making it seem like it's higher than it is. I say writing this, and at the time of writing I didn't know what Claire's power actually was. I knew its trick level, I didn't know what it actually did. Dreda gave a nod, surprised and a little relieved. She rudely nearly laughed at Selena's trick level 10, barely double digits. You shouldn't laugh. She was in the same boat as you because of that, Tim told her. What do you mean? Dreda frowned. They weren't sure someone who wouldn't be able to use their trick much would be able to become a hero. Like you, it's only because her combat level is so high she was able to become a hero. But unlike me, she's a trickster, she said, annoyed. The reason they considered not letting Drada become a hero was a complete lack of trick, which was understandable. But Selena at least had a trick. It annoyed her that they had nearly kicked out such an impressive fighter, even though she was closer to what they wanted than Drada herself. I know, and don't get mad at me for it, he snapped, recoiling from the glare she was giving her computer screen. They were just afraid people might assume she's not a trickster for it. It worked out in the end, though. Still stupid. Drada pouted and moved on. And about a week went on like this. Drada would come in at 9, set herself up in the Batcave, and read. Sometimes she was pulled out to talk about the workout routine that was being made for her, to take measurements for her costume, look at designs they had come up with, and discuss ideas on what areas of media she was interested in to help decide where she would like to make public appearances. It was as busy as Claire said it was going to be, and after dragging herself through what seemed like an endless supply of hero and villain information, Drada didn't even want to think about looking at the extra file she had. On the last day, that wonderful of all days, Friday, Drada closed the laptop with a done. Well done. You finished in about average time, Tim congratulated without looking away from his screen. Out of curiosity, when do you guys get to read up about me? She assumed that had to happen since it was regulation that she knows about them. Your file will be put together after your mentoring period. Mentoring period? Drada repeated in interest. You'll be assigned to a hero and basically be a sidekick for a bit, he answered bluntly. Learn the ropes by doing. Oh, I like the sound of that. Any idea who I'll be paired with? Drada nodded and smiled. Probably Claire. If not, maybe the Wilders, since you got along with them. He answered, leaning forward as he clicked away furiously. Not sure what he's playing that you need to click that much. Drada had gotten used to conversations with the side of his face, though it didn't bother her. Not you? He gave her a side glance. Suppose it's possible, but not sure. Either way, you'll find out Monday, he said as Drada gave a stretch. And with her success at completing the first stage of Hero Boot Camp, Drada was allowed to go home early. She was told that she could take the weekend as a break and come back Monday, ready to discuss her TV debut and who she would be mentoring with. Who would be mentoring her? This left him alone in the Batcave, which felt a bit odd after a week of company. He glanced to where Rosa had been, and his eyes ran over her wheelie chair to the desk and the abandoned laptop that sat there. He paused his game, pushed his chair back and crossed his arms, sighing in annoyance at his own thoughts. It was so petty. That unknown file was bugging him so much. He'd been through the system a lot, whether people knew it or not. He'd never seen a file just called 3. Nor did he think Claire would make a mistake like that. She would have noticed and deleted it before giving it to Rosa if she did. It might be personal. But then personal to who? They wouldn't have any personal information on Rosa, and why would Claire give anything personal to Rosa, who she had only just met? Damn it. He gave Rosa's chair a push out of the way and slid over, opening the laptop. His curiosity wouldn't let him not look at it. It's not like I have to tell anyone I looked at it, he reasoned with himself as he typed in Rosa's password. It took him a while to get past the security on the file, since he didn't know the password, but inevitably the file opened, and it contained a single document, Case File 87. Case files were a standard thing for the heroes. They had to fill them in after any event, after foiling every evil plan, and after saving every kitten from a tree. It helped them keep a record of what they did and helped them if they needed any evidence against lawsuits. Tim had read many on his strolls through the system, but this one he remembered because this one he had been in a section he couldn't get to. He'd seen the file, but the security had been too good. It was a section dedicated to particularly dangerous cases, be it dangerous for what happened or for what information it contained. A large part of him was excited to get access to such a file, though a small part of him was slightly afraid of what he was going to read. Opening it up, the case washed his screen with white and black text, and he started to read. And I'm going to put a slight warning here. This is a very dark bit. If you are someone maybe sensitive to lots of horrible death and many horrible things happening, human experimentation and all that, yeah, you may want to pop off now. Just giving you a fair warning here. Shit's gonna get dark. Case file 87. Hero reporting missed Paragon. Date the 16th of the 3rd, 2012. Case severity high. Report. This case followed a mugging I stopped in town 2 days before embarking on this mission. The culprit of said mugging was a trickster who said they had escaped from a facility that was running human experiments on tricksters. The trickster was sent to jail, and I researched the facility he spoke of, finding it to exist. After getting the necessary permissions, I travelled to this facility to see if the claims were true, and, if so, free those imprisoned. What I found went beyond what I had expected, and in the end I was only able to save one person. Forgive this report for being short, but I do not wish to go over the details. Instead, I have attached scans of files recovered from the site. They will give more than enough information. Something Claire wasn't willing to create a report because of. Tim was starting to get worried, but he opened the file now. It might just be his imagination making it out to be worse than it was. At least he hoped. It wasn't. The files were from a simply called Project Trickster, founded in the year 2000 to research the origin and nature of tricks that were appearing in people since. In their first year, they acquired 100 people and called them Series 1, giving them all a number. They were varying ages, genders, nationalities, and all of that information was tracked. In the beginning, it didn't seem too bad. They started with simple therapy sessions and getting people to attempt to use tricks. Some were discovering they had tricks at this point, but the stats on the document said it was at the normal rate of those outside the project. There was no way to tell what triggered it, what was different from those with power and those without. And at the moment there was no pattern they could tell. So the measures started to get a bit more severe. Those with tricks were discreetly taken from the others for scans and even dissection, generally not making it back to the rest. This is when they made their first discovery. The tests and scans showed no signs of change in the person from the start of the tests, but they found as paranoia grew with the rest, more started to appear with tricks. So paranoia and fear of death was suspected to cause tricks. So this was tried. The scientists let one subject overhear that they were next. Sure enough, after a few days they produced a trick. It was after a few more times on different people, but as much as there was definitely a correlation, it wasn't 100%. 1 out of every 5 produced a trick this way. So, with the theory of paranoia tested, they moved on to fear of death, in other words, survival instinct. That was when things got more openly brutal, and people were trying to escape because how else do you test the fear of death? more than a life-threatening situation. The number of subjects was being shortened by about 10 a week, but those who got through almost all produced a trick. They put them through life-threatening situation after life-threatening situation until only one was left standing. She was allowed to live and given the name Product 1. About 2.5 years later, the start of the tests series 2 began. With the data from series 1 taken into account, the 100 for this series were comprised of people under the age of 40. Almost immediately, they were thrown into life-threatening situations. Product 1 was also not spared, forced to go through hell again with Series 2. 40 died within the first week of Series 2, and 40 materialized tricks, with only 20 coming out without a trick. Tables were starting to turn. It wasn't a question of why people were materializing tricks now. It was, why were some people not materializing tricks? Correlation showed that the younger subjects were taking to tricks quicker, like in Series 1, but other than that, they weren't sure for a few months. So for a few months, the scientists reeled in the murder and took to the therapy sessions again, trying to see if they could figure out anything different from their experiences. If there was a clear difference in how the tricksters viewed the situation compared to the non-tricksters. As much as this led to some of the scientists being murdered during their sessions, it revealed something quite clear. People without tricks were much calmer. They were still very angry about their situation, but the tricksters were not the only ones to... They were still very angry about their situation, and the tricksters were not the only ones to lash out and kill scientists, but the non-tricksters seemed less affected. Simply, the 20 who did not manifest a trick were the 20 who did not suffer an extreme level of trauma when their life was in danger. Call them strong or insane. Either way, it told the scientists that, like paranoia, survival instinct was just another way to manifest a trick. A much more effective way, but again, not 100%. The idea of stress levels and trauma was now being thrown around. The first way they tested this was that if they didn't suffer trauma with their own lives in their hands, what would they do with the lives of others in their hands? The 20 had 2 people brought before them and were forced to choose who lived and who died. If the subject took over 15 minutes to decide, both would die. The 20 subjects either found a way to kill themselves or manifested a trick after this experience. The scientists began to theorize that everyone had the potential to manifest a trick. It was simply a case of, as they put it, finding the right key. And these keys were situations humans never saw themselves in. Whether it was being forced to do something inhuman, or being threatened in a way that they never expected in their normal human life. Each key forced a person to act in a way not considered by normal human standards. With this in mind, they wanted to start Series 3, but they had leftover from Series 2 subjects. So they chose one with seemingly the more powerful trick, and named him Product 2, and purged the rest. And I need a small drink before we get into the rest of this horribleness. It's dark, bro. As horrible as the report had been so far, it was only about to get worse. Series 3 was 100 people with the ages less than 20. It was now about 4 years since the start of the project, and the scientists were beginning to concoct the idea of ranking tricks. For this, they had taken as many as they could with tricks already manifested, and got them to kill as many of the other subjects as they could in a certain amount of time, and a level for their trick and a level for their combat skill was assigned. At that time, Tim wanted to puke. That was too familiar. He read on only to have it confirmed that this trick level test went on to be virtualized because when tested in the virtual version, trick levels and combat levels were higher, so it was thought to be easier. The virtualized version of the test was sold off, and the scientists that ran the experiment stuck to literal versions. This made Series 3 last only a year, and again, a Product 3 was produced. Series 4 wanted to work on what it took to raise trick levels, sticking to subjects under 20, as this seemed to be the optimum age to manifest a trick. They also took as many as they could with tricks already manifested. The first thing they did with them was test the trick levels of those that they took with tricks, and something odd happened. A subject that was supposed to die in a test killed the trickster they were against and finished the test themselves. Problem was, they hadn't picked up a trick level at all. So they tried the keys they already had to make them a trickster. Paranoia didn't work. Threatening their life didn't work. Putting the weight of another's life in their hands didn't work. The scientists were abuzz with this new anomaly they discovered. Did their existence prove their theory, or were there more keys they hadn't tried? They tried to find the right key. What inspired me for this bit? I don't know. For this specific horrible bit, I don't know. I think my inner edgelord was just coming out with this bit, I won't lie. The general overall inspiration for the books came from multiple sources, because at the time Marvel movies were kind of becoming just a big thing. Like I said, my boyfriend got me to watch Young Justice. Many superhero things, and I just really wanted to write my own superhero thing. But it came with this edgy backstory. But still, after months, after the subject simply losing their mind, there was no sign of a trick. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it does have to be inspired by something, but I probably just don't remember what it is. You are entirely correct, Medizadi. This was my first book, yes. My first published book. They'd gone through the test so many times that in the end they were the only one left of Series 4 and was named Product 4. Thank you! Yeah. Unfortunately, despite the scientists starting Series 5, Product 4 was still an item of fascination and still had to go through some horrible things. The scientists tried to go back to their original goal of Series 4 and see what it took to raise a subject's trick level. They took their products for this. Gradually, through everything they had been put through, products 1, 2, and 3's trick levels had been rising and making them watch and take part in what was happening to Product 4 was raising it even more. Yeah. Thank you for the hearts. Another 100 subjects were there are already 3 other books. This is the first of a series. There's 3 other books, and I'm hoping to get 2 more published this year, hopefully, but it's going a bit slower than I thought. It's hard to find the time sometimes. But there's book 5 and 6 I've already written. I'm just editing, and I've started book 7. So there'll be many more. Another 100 test subjects were brought in, but they were simply cannon fodder for the products at this point. The more horrible and traumatic the situations they were put through, the more their trick level rose and... What? Tim scrolled down, but the pages of scanned documents stopped. As much as he felt sick after reading it, and a large part of his brain was trying to pretend that it wasn't a factual document, he was annoyed to end there. How many series were there in the end? This only tracked 5 or so years since the year 2000, and assuming it stopped after Claire got there was still 8 years unaccounted for. There was at least a conclusion from Claire. Yeah, it's basically just been a big press and passion project. I can't say the book's been overall successful in sales, but I'm proud of myself for getting it out there anyway. As said at the beginning of the report, the details are not nice. The person I managed to save was Product 4. She was taken from the hospital and is, from what I know, undergoing treatment. She was taken to the hospital, not from the hospital. They said if they can deem her stable enough, they can give her a new identity and a real name. Sadly, when I got there, they seemed to have some good escape routes planned, and in the end, I was the only one there, so it was hard to stop them all from getting away. I wish to continue looking into this matter, as I believe they most likely moved locations and continued with these experiments. I will not allow this to continue. Report end. Yeah. And Tim didn't blame her. His mind couldn't comprehend it happening, let alone still happening. To think he'd taken part in something that was a product of it. And then there was why Claire gave this file to Rosa. He already knew, he just didn't want it to be. I mean, there was a potential it wasn't. He growled to himself and shut the laptop and marched over to the library, finding Claire in her usual spot. She looked up at his distress must have shown because she immediately closed her book and came over. Tim? We need to talk, he said simply, and with a nod, she led over to one of the small private side rooms. Yeah, I mean, early teens, late teens, it's very YA-y, I will give that much. Young adult. I sometimes think some of it's a little bit too dark for early teens. I don't think I have. I do have a bit of swearing in here as well. But then I have a friend who's read a couple of books that are in the YA section. I think it's really surprisingly dark sometimes. I'm like, why is this in the young adult section? This is really dark. Why? So I don't know. Book ratings are hard. A rating for this, I don't know. At least I'd probably give it a 15 for if it was a movie. if you could have all the blood and violence that I would want in the movie, it would be a 15, I think. So at least, yeah, so 15 and above. I wouldn't want anyone younger than 15 reading it. It was big enough for a desk, a computer, a chair, without feeling too claustrophobic when you closed the door. Tim closed it behind them and Claire looked over concerned. What is it? She asked, noticing he was paler than normal. You're gonna kick my ass for this, he sighed and took a calming breath as he prepared his confession. I read that file. The one you left for Rosa. What? Claire tensed. 3. Tim confirmed. Tim! It was passworded for a reason! She yelled, and Tim, already freaked out, flinched quite violently. I know. I'm sorry. He put his hands up in defeat. But After waving them around a bit, he lowered them back down to slide to his sides, and as he looked away, he is a big old dum-dum. Fucking nerd. Can't leave a file unread. He took a deep breath after reading that seemed... My ability to read is struggling. He took a deep breath. After reading that, breathing seemed like a chore. Swallowing, he asked the question he really didn't want the answer to, but couldn't leave unanswered. I need to know. Product 4 is Rosa. Claire finished, her anger disappearing, and the air becoming the weight of the world. I have done this for an hour already. But we can do more! Tim's back hit the wall, and the weight pushed him down as all his energy just left him. How? She was 10 when they started on her, and it was safe to assume they carried on until Claire took her away. He would have never guessed all that happened to the girl he'd been teaching how to use a computer all week. Never. It wasn't hard to tell Rosa had been through some dark things. The scars were visible in how she acted, but it was insane finding out the reality. He couldn't even imagine how someone dealt with such a thing. He couldn't comprehend how she could act so normal. How she could just survive. Claire didn't say anything. It was all hard to take in, and there was nothing she could say. There was no bright side, no, at least nothing. You said you continued to look into it, right? Tim said, hoping to find a bright side despite that. Ah, yay! Reddit's come through for me. Out of curiosity, which subreddit specifically, because I drop it in many, many places. I think I dropped it on like 6 different subreddits. I did, and it runs deeper than I originally thought. Project Trickster was government funded, and the world came together at the potential threat of tricksters. And the project was born. Booktube! Wonderful. Good to know. Thank you. That's why it was so easy to get whatever they needed, and that's why after 3 years I haven't been able to find them again, Claire said solemnly. Fuck. So there's nothing we can do? If Tim wasn't already slumped on the ground, he would have at that. Well, no. Tim's eyes shot to her in surprise. I was told to keep off the case, but obviously, seeing what I did, I wasn't going to sit there and do nothing, Claire told him, and Tim smirked. You just had to be sneakier about it. Claire nodded. It's limited me, but I have at least been able to find out the names of the 2 head scientists. What are they? He asked, getting up from the floor, as Claire gave him a hard look. You shouldn't get any more involved. Claire, you know I can't leave this. Just like you can't, he growled. Yeah. I'm much better at self-marketing myself as a VTuber than I am as an author. Which is probably why the book's not done too well, but here we are, I'm trying it now. Marketing my shit. Links in the description. Ha! Anyway. This isn't just some villain we can throw in jail, Tim. Taking this down will turn the world against us, she warned, but Tim got more annoyed. So, you're asking me to turn a blind eye, even when someone we know and will be working with was horrifically tortured for a large part of her life because of it? No! I'm not a monster like that. I'm a hero. I save lives, and you can't expect me to turn away when this experiment has already claimed hundreds. Claire stood frozen in the fires of his ice-coloured eyes. He was right. It took insanity to be a hero, and it took insanity to take on the world. Coincidentally, the same kind of insanity. She couldn't expect him to turn away, especially after spending the last week with Rosa. The two of them had gotten along well. Claire had never seen him make a friend so fast. Never seen him show so much patience and determination to get someone familiar with computers. She'd never seen him try with the Wilders. She'd seen him try with the Wilders before, but he lost his patience with them and kicked them out of the Batcave. But Rosa, she now had a place set up for her. So she shouldn't have been so surprised to find him so passionate about helping her. I suppose I shouldn't, she sighed and put her hands on her hips. You can help me, but you need to be very, very careful. I will. I'll see what I can dig up on the net, okay? He smiled, triumphant. All right. She had to admit, someone with his skills would definitely speed up her investigation, even if she was worried about his hacking being traced. Good, I'll start on... Wait! She said sternly, smirking a little as he looked at her confused. As punishment for looking at that file, you weren't supposed to, you're going to be Rosa's mentor. What? You're going to go on patrols with her, appear publicly with her, and show her the ropes. But, oh please, it's not like you're not secretly happy to spend more time with her. He was. But he wasn't about to admit it. What are you insinuating? He glared. Well, it's just that you got really fired up there by the idea of such bad things happening to her. And you've been so patient and nice to her the past week. Claire answered with an innocent shrug of her shoulders while his cheeks flared pink. It's not against the law to be nice to someone you know. It's not like I like her or anything. Baka. Yes, right. She nodded, smiling and walking past him, leaving him in the small room on his own. Damn you, he sighed. As his brain started to calm down a bit, it actually hit him. Oh, shit. I'm going to be Rosa's mentor. He'd never done mentoring before, and his experience wasn't great. What am I going to do? But wait. He peeked out of the room, watching Claire settle back at her usual desk. Does that mean I get the weekend off too? He asked. Yes, but that's because you need to prepare and think about and think about how you're going to handle this, she said. Not to play games. He is. He doesn't give himself enough credit. This poor boy does not have as much confidence in himself as he should. You're right. I can handle it, he growled. Yes. And you totally aren't going to be coming to me in a few days asking how the hell I managed with Lanny when you can't with Rosa. Claire's face was in her book again, but she was smirking still. Your faith in me is just inspiring, he grumbled, deciding to retreat back to the Batcave. Ta-da! I think this is a shorter chapter. We might be able to get away with it. Maybe. Friends for Life. No, I haven't. Who's that by? Let me have a look at this suggestion. Friends for Life. I cannot find it. I put you on the spot now. You have to research it. There are a lot of books called Friends for Life. Okay. I reckon I can do this chapter. Take your time. I will get started on the next chapter. Chapter 7, Understanding. Someone's gonna have have to face up to the consequences of his own actions now. And so, Droider and Tim had a nice weekend off. Droider spent a lot of it nervous about Monday. No idea what to do with herself now she didn't have to look for a job. She amused herself by taking Miss Miggins shopping. Andrew Norris. Okie dokie. Andrew Norris. I found it. Children's fiction on bullying, apparently. The BB book. I will have a quick nose. Cute little 200-page book. Aww. I will have a look. It's always nice to have a little, like, refreshing book. Refreshing and short one. Maybe as a nice refresher between books, it'll be nice. I will add it to my list. She amused herself by taking Miss Miggins shopping, playing with Snickers and watching a lot of TV, which bored her silly by the end of Sunday, so she decided she needed to find a hobby for next time she was off for a few days. Oh no, feelings! You didn't tell me about that. Toward the end, I see. Feelings. Do. But Monday rolled around and she appeared at the tall skyscraper that was her workplace with a big bag of newly bought gym clothes to store away. With a breath, she walked in until... Rosa! A pair of arms flew around her shoulders. Droider stumbled with the new weight. There was no misplacing the hyper voice of... Lanny? She managed to shift the girl's arms so they didn't choke her, but still, the girl let herself hang off Droider's shoulders like she was her new cape. Sup? She'd asked Droider this before, and still it confused her. She realized she was eventually going to have to learn how to deal with Lanny, so she decided to ask, "What does that even mean?" "Sup?" the girl echoed, confused. "What's up? How are you?" That sort of thing. Silly person. "Oh." Droider gave a nod. Then I'm fine, just wondering how long this human necklace is gonna hang around." Human. What? Nothing, she said innocently. "And how long can I stay here?" she asked. They'll want you off as security," Droider answered, walking in the building, with the schoolgirl hanging off her shoulders. As predicted, Lanny stayed where she was until the security guard insisted on her unhooking herself so they could go through the gate properly. And she did. She let go of Droider, walked through security nicely, but sadly for Droider, as soon as they were on the other through, she was trying to hop on Droider's back again. This led to some very amused office workers watching as the redhead dodged the schoolgirl's attempts to get a piggyback ride and running from her. The chase of yelling and giggling only ended at the elevator, where someone was already waiting for the lift to arrive. So, because this might be your first stream of this, Droider and Rosa are the same person. Rosa is a fake name she's using for her colleagues because superheroes use fake names with each other to stop their identities being read by mind readers, just so as you knows. It is also something I entirely regret putting in the book, but hey-ho. Droider ploughed into the back of a red button-up shirt at the elevator, stumbling in and only managing to stay on her feet because the person in front of her did. "I'll leave you here, have fun," Lanny chirped. "Lanny, what the hell?" Droider barked. She watched the door close, teeth gritted in anger as Lanny made kissy faces. She kept glaring until the doors closed, eventually remembering that she just barged right into someone. "Oh, I'm sorry." She quickly turned to the familiar face as he adjusted his glasses and rubbed his forehead, which had just made hard contact with the mirrored wall of the lift. "Glasses aren't broken, so it's fine," Tim told her, weirdly calm about it all. Drada gave him an odd look. What? He asked. I thought at least the door would get a glare. True. Normally Tim would be mad at what happened, glaring at the door as if it would somehow reach Lanny. And he was going to. He had all intentions at yelling at the person who just barged into him, but as soon as he turned around and saw Drada, that thought left his brain. What he read that day never left him. It wasn't something he forgot, and now looking at Rosa, he couldn't help it all come back. Her eyes showed darkness. He'd known from the moment he met her that she had been through some bad things. Scars showed in her slightly dulled blue eyes, but what's wrong? She asked. His train of thought she crashed his train of thought with a look of concern. Nothing. He looked away, worrying Drada all the more. He couldn't understand. He couldn't understand how she was the way she was now. She'd had 3 years to recover from it, but soldiers coming back from war sometimes, that wasn't enough. In 3 years, she adjusted to normal life after going through hell. I am not, because I'm making mistakes in my audio left, right, and center. I know I am. I have a clean version of chapter 1 on the channel, but editing out my mistakes is way too much effort. I don't like that much editing. It's fiddly and annoying. So I'm just streaming it for the funsies. But then she threw all that away for a hectic and very not normal double life as a hero. It was what made him think she wasn't as recovered as she seemed, or maybe even a large part of her couldn't adjust to a normal life anymore. We're here, she called out, and he blinked away his train of thought to see the elevator at their floor. Are you sure you're alright? Fine. He shook his head. He had other things to worry about. Well, not other things. Worrying about being a good mentor was still technically worrying about Rosa. This makes me wonder if there's a section for book reading for fun in Twitch or not. Potentially. It would be definitely worth a try. Because these streams seem to do okay. I seem to get some nice subs from them. I've read other people's books in my book, and well, this is the first time reading my book, but it's been fun. Had some good responses. Just haven't had enough coffee this morning. Alright, Drada answered, not sure what else to do. If it was something she could help with, she wanted to, but she couldn't say she really had enough experience dealing with emotional issues like this. She forced herself to shrug it off. For all she knew, it really could have been the lack of coffee. As they entered the press office, Drada realized that she actually didn't know where she was supposed to go today. Normally, she'd pop ahead in the library area to see Claire, and then go to the Batcave for the rest of the day, but her reading had been done. Boot camp was over. Rosa! As Drada was thinking this, Trish rushed over, her arms full of papers. She stopped in front of her and struggled with the mass of dead forest in her arms. Do you want some help? Rosa felt the need to ask. No, I just... After dropping about 5 pieces of paper and a file, she pulled out the one piece of paper she wanted. Here. Rosa took the paper from her and gave it a scan. Your schedule for the day. Don't be late for anything, Trish said, then quickly buzzed off to her next task. Wait, your papers! Drada picked up the papers and looked around, but Trish had already gone. She gave a sigh and asked somewhere where else she would want them, and was told to put them in her office. So Rosa wandered into the disaster zone that was Trish's office, scanning over the schedule she had been given. It was 9:10 a.m. now. At 9:30, she was to report to Vince for a final costume fitting. At 10 a.m., she had to report to meeting room 2, where she would be told how patrols work. and at 11 a.m. the police would have a meeting with her about the do's and don'ts on patrol. At 12 p.m. she had an hour for lunch and was out on patrol from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. Huh. That's interesting that there's nothing like that on Twitch, because I know I'm not the only one who does this on YouTube. But there's no one on Twitch. That is... that's an opportunity. Maybe I should be on Twitch. But Twitch is scary. I don't understand Twitch. The reason I'm on YouTube is because I'm an old lady and I haven't really... I've spent a lot of time on YouTube and I used to upload Let's Plays and stuff once upon a time. So I understood YouTube, but Twitch is a foreign entity to me. However, it is an opportunity that I should think about. Yeah, that's true. Because, I mean, with YouTube, you kind of expect, like, a series of videos. Whereas Twitch, it's like you catch it at the time. So I don't know how well it would work with Twitch. Especially when it deletes videos and stuff. And I don't know. It's a strange thing. It's an idea. It's a thought. Whoa, there's a lot of prep to being a hero. Yeah, I've heard that it's incredibly hard to break out on Twitch. But it's got so many fancy integrations. Wish YouTube had those. Her short purple battle dress with shorts underneath, completed with matching long gloves and boots, were given some last tweaks. Her gym clothes were put away. She had a meeting on the basics of patrols and sat through the police badgering her on making sure she stayed within the law. It was how she expected. Law enforcement didn't like them, but begrudgingly accepted them, since some villains were a bit too much for them to handle. After the police had done their demoralization, Drada slumped in her seat and Claire laughed. "Tea? Please," she said gratefully as Claire got up. "They are harsh, aren't they?" "Yeah," Drada frowned. She couldn't help but feel a bit paranoid of her actions out in the field now. The police really gave her the feeling that they were going to jump on her for everything she did. "Try not to worry about them too much," Claire said from the kettle. "I mean, Lanny's still not in prison." "True," Drada nodded. Drada considered the Wilders too. She'd seen some of the collateral damage they had caused on the news. Yeah, I've seen like just funny clips of people with their redeems, and honestly it's probably a good thing because I am a jumpy person. If I had redeems I would be like dying. It would be entertaining for everyone watching, but I would be jumping out of my skin every time someone redeemed it, even if it wasn't a scary redeem. So, she knew there was one last thing. "Tim said I was having a mentor for a while." "Yes." Claire brought the 2 steaming cups to the table. "Since you've been with me all day, I assume it's you?" Drada asks. "Sorry, no." Claire couldn't help but smile when Drada frowned. "It was going to be, but plans changed. Tim will be your mentor." "Oh," nodded, not disappointed by that in the slightest. She'd spent an entire week getting to know the guy. If she couldn't have Claire, he would have been her second choice. Then Selena would be her third. But since they were both combat junkies, she doubted the two of them would be paired together. Ah, thank you. That's really sweet. I appreciate that. I have had some wonderful comments. People are very entertained by a British accent, it seems. I had one person who was incredibly entertained by me saying Tuesday and that I was drinking water. I need to be noticed. People need to notice me. And that's very sweet. Thank you. That's a very nice comment. It's a very specific compliment. I have someone who's not here today, but he compliments me a shit ton. And he compliment bombs me. It's very, but that's very specific. Anyway, we're reading. Although he was really awkward with me this morning. Are you sure it's a good idea? Drayden knew it wasn't her place to say. She didn't get to decide these things, but if something was bothering Tim, then maybe mentoring her wasn't the best plan for him. Claire gave an annoyed sigh in response, and that confused Drayden completely. Tim is mentoring you as punishment, she said bluntly and paused a moment. Claire had considered what to tell her. She wasn't sure how Rosa would react, as when they talked about it, she seemed to genuinely unsure what to think of the idea of her past being dragged up. Oh, T is in so much trouble right now. What for? Drayden tilted her head, worried by the deep breath, and... I'm sorry. He hacked in and read the file I gave you. Claire watched Drayden's reaction carefully. To begin with, it was shock, realizing someone other than Claire now knew of her past, and after a moment she looked away. It felt like a while to Drayden as her mind went over it. She never wanted people to know about her past because she knew what they would do. She knew how they would look at her. Her teeth clenched. How he looked at her this morning. Too curiosity. Curiosity kills the geek. Like something was wrong with her. Like she shouldn't be how she is. She knew full well normal people couldn't comprehend what she went through. 2 years of regular visits to the therapist told her that. When people knew what she went through, people wanted to see how broken she was, when her scars were not as painful as people thought. Or at least they weren't festering. They were healing, and people just couldn't understand how healing was possible. The only reason the therapist did was that Drayden told her one thing. They stole my past, but they won't steal my future. She did everything she could to leave it behind and have a life. They took everything, her name, her life, her innocence. Drayden had been given a second chance, taken a name, started a life, and she was not going to let them ruin that. She would not ruin it by looking for revenge. She would not ruin it by letting her scars fester. She would live her life, her way, and having people who knew what happened, who would want to right that injustice, ruined that. She told herself she didn't care what happened to the people who did it to her. She told herself she didn't care to know what happened to the other products. She buried the question she would never have the answer to, and hated that she now had 2 people that could help her get them. Yep, that percentage is how far we are through. It's the sort of Kindle percentage thing at the bottom there. I just have a bit of a zoomed in one. I used to put like what chapter we were on specifically, because I thought if anyone had the book and maybe wanted to read along, they would be able to sort of find where they are easier. But I kept forgetting to update the chapter on the label. So I put the percentage on instead. I startled you. Boo! Claire she let go. Claire had saved her from it in the first place. She couldn't blame her. She'd seen the horrors of where she came from firsthand and likely understood Drayden's reluctance to think about it again. I'm spoopy. Tim had found out because he just couldn't keep his hands off her laptop, and that made her see red. Sadly, Tim had the worst timing possible. He walked in just about this time, as he was being told to meet with them to talk over the whole mentoring thing. As soon as Drader registered him, he felt like he had a gun pointed to his head. A monster shot from Drader's seat, the chair flying back and crashing into the wall behind her. "Rosa!" Claire tried to stop her, but the older woman was shoved aside, hitting the ground, as Drader bolted up to Tim. A fist was thrown, and Tim was lucky he had a hallway behind him to quickly dodge back into. "Why?" she growled, throwing another punch. He leaned to the side, but didn't quite manage to dodge. He gritted his teeth as her fist smashed into his shoulder. It spun him around, but he managed to push off the wall and down the corridor, so he didn't have the wall behind him. I am not a mother. Definitely not. Never ever. I'm a mother to fictional children. All of these ones in this book. Why did you have to look at it, asshole? She roared, glaring an inferno as she darted at him. Ice spread from his feet and hastily covered her path to him. She slipped, too angry to take in the change and adjust. Look, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have... Shit! Claire told her? He had no idea she'd react to this way, but then... How else would you react when someone hacked into your secrets? He backed himself up, not sure what to do. He didn't want to hurt her, but she was so pissed. He wasn't sure she'd react to anything else. Not to mention, his shoulder now hurt like fuck. And with Drader's 85 combat level and enclosed in this hallway, if she wanted him dead for what he did, he would die right here. But she wasn't going for vitals. When she got back up, she went to kick him in the side and a move that could cause more pain than damage. She wanted him to suffer, and he agreed. He deserved it. He shouldn't have looked. He should have just left it. So he closed his eyes and braced himself. I appreciate it. Well, my fictional character's never going to tell me, so thank you. Also, it's not Mother's Day here in the UK. We have a different Mother's Day. And it was in March. No, he didn't. He did it because he was curious. Don't justify him. So he closed his eyes and braced himself. He took the kick to the side, being thrown into the wall of the narrow corridor as Claire rushed to the door. "Rosa, stop this!" she ordered, but Drader just yelled right back. Why the fuck should I? He's the one who couldn't just let it go. He's the one who looked at me this morning like I should have been some broken doll that doesn't function anymore. Tim looked at her shocked. That was why she was mad? Not because of him looking at the data, but how he reacted to it? It was so hard for him to comprehend her recovery that he looked at her like she wasn't acting right. Like she was somehow wrong. Not to be broken. "Rosa, I'm sorry," he said, realizing what he did. Rosa went to hit him again, but Claire's hand landed on her shoulder. Instinctively, she threw the attack at Claire instead. That's fair. Fair enough. He needs a one cheerleader, and it can be you. Luckily, Claire jumped back, dodging quickly enough, but Drader couldn't help but pause at that. Shit. she growled, annoyed. She'd thrown an attack at someone she didn't want to hurt. She realized her breathing was heavy, and she pulled herself out of a combat position. A shape started appearing back through the red haze of anger. She wasn't calm by any means, but at least her mind was returning. You mind if we continue this after lunch or something? Drada said flatly, her body still shaking. Claire nodded. Selena's in the gym at the moment, she pointed out, a way to get her frustration, and Drada nodded, taking the dark, suffocating cloud that was her presence in the room and going to the gym. Tim was left on the ground, clutching his side. Do you need to go to the infirmary? Claire asked, without her usual care. I'll be fine. I deserve it. Tim answered, his own mood dark. That you do. Make sure you clean up your ice. Claire walked away, leaving him to his misery. Wait, he called, and Claire turned around with her disappointed mother look. Why did you tell her I knew? He asked. It wasn't that he was against it, but it might have been easier not to tell her, because she had a right to know. You should understand that. It's like if anyone found out about your father, for instance. Claire answered simply. Tim nodded. Yeah, I get it. Yes, Claire is a mother. It's very obvious, even though everyone gets shocked when they find out sometimes. No, she is an actual mother. It's not revealed in this book, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because it's incredibly obvious how she mums everyone. She can't turn off her mum. He touched the ice he made on the floor, and in a second it disappeared like it had never been there. Tim sat with his back against the wall and let out a heavy sigh. It probably couldn't have gone much worse, and I need a drink. Yeah, happy Mother's Day to Claire. The dark clouds followed Drada to the other side of the building and completely filled the gym when she bashed the door open. The two wilders inside both suddenly turned to the door, still on guard and ready for a fight, but as soon as they saw the redhead with her face stone set in anger, they both let their guard down. I'm not misunderstanding you when you say all three of us are the special ones. Are you a mother? Oh no, you're going to spoil a very small bit of Moon 2. It's fine, it's only one book away that people find that out. It's all good. Where is it? You alright? Pandora asked. What happened? Oh, the American accent, I forgot. American. You alright? Pandora asked. What happened? Her sister asked. Oh, the power, you can spoil a tiny thing. Oh, noes. I need to hit something, was her only answer. The two sisters heard her loud and clear. American, yeah! These two are American characters. The two sisters heard her loud and clear, and Pandora got out of the way as Selena took up a defensive position. Bring it, she said simply, without another word. Drada darted across the room at her. Pandora barely got out of the way as Selena blocked the hard and unforgiving hits Drada threw her way at lightning speeds. One, then another from the other side. Selena kept her center of gravity low, focusing purely on keeping the hits from getting her anywhere that would cause too much damage. She was going to look bruised and beaten after this, no matter what she did, but at least she could tense her muscles and block as much pain as she could. Pandora on the sidelines actually had time to think. The speed and power of Rose's movements were terrifying, and the young woman looked like she wanted to kill. What happened? One hit after another, slowly, after an annoyingly long time as far as Selena was concerned, Rose's movements started to slow. So, American. So, Selena spoke when she started to find it easier to keep up. What happened? Tim, Dreda growled out. What? Selena paused to block a flurry of 3 punches. You ask him out and he say no? She joked. A swift roundhouse kick threw Selena off her feet in response with an annoyed, no! Selena groaned as the bruises began to whine at her nervous system. Slowly she sat up. She wasn't getting up all the way. She'd start getting hit again. If she did, and she'd taken enough punishment. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't think she'd realize if she did, though. She's a baby. She does not understand. Dreda could punch a wall if she had more steam to blow off. There was only so much Selena could take. So what? She asked, looking up at her. Pandora came over with a couple of bottles of water for the two of them, and Dreda gave a sigh, feeling a lot better after the fight, but still annoyed at it ever happened. He hacked in some personal information I'd rather no one see, she said, hoping they didn't ask about it. Ah. Selena nodded after a swig of water. That should be a swig of water. Oh, there's still some mistakes in it. This is the 2nd edition after I went through and did some spelling and grammar issues. And there's still some spelling and grammar issues. It annoys the heck out of me. How badly did you hurt him? I might have killed him if Claire hadn't been there, she admitted, looking away. She was ashamed to admit it, but she lost complete control back there. She imagined a normal person would be scared that they would so easily kill someone, but she wasn't surprised at all. She knew full well, and the only reason she was ashamed was because no one would have forced her to do it. It would have been on her. Indeed, author issues. No matter how much you read through something, you always miss things. It's very annoying. Hashtag can relate. Yes, very much. Or do you have a book? You should show me your book so I can read it. Yeah. Not to mention her and Tim had become friends. She would have regretted it. She was very, very glad Claire had been there. Deja vu. How do I do deja vu in an American accent? Deja vu. You do your A's big, you guys, so what? That was Dreda, so I was an American. What? And Dreda looked at her. It's happened before, the younger sister explained. We all have secrets. We don't. Fucking liar, Selena added. Oh, that's cool. Interesting. Well, we don't, but we don't, but most here do. The worst incident was last year with Lani. She gets these letters from the Middle East, Poshkin scrolls with wax seals and everything. She tears them up or burns them whenever they get to her. But one of the guys in the post room read one. They went to talk to her about it, and she heard them? Dreda guessed, but the face of the young Wilder was grim. I imagine it would have been just that if someone had been there to stop her, but she killed him. Dreda froze. Herself, she wasn't surprised at. She'd killed so many, she couldn't count anymore. Something inside her was broken when it came to the idea of killing. She knew that, but Lani? She wasn't one to judge what darkness the girl might have in her life, but she just didn't think the hyper-innocent seeming girl who decided to be her cape this morning would just kill someone like that. Like she nearly did. She just couldn't. Wait. She sighed. This is what Tim feels like! She spoke out of nowhere. The two Wilders simultaneously tilted their heads, but Drada didn't explain. She couldn't comprehend why Lanny did what she did, like Tim couldn't comprehend why she acts like she does. It was a problem a lot of the world suffered from. A lack of understanding. How could she expect him to understand if she never gave him a chance to talk about it? She couldn't expect people to look over it and treat her normally after. There was no way. No way you could find out about her past and treat her the same. Maybe hacking into the file was wrong, but maybe how she reacted was wrong too. Especially since it was his reaction that pissed her off more, and considering the situation, his reaction was completely normal. She gave another sigh. I feel better now. Thank you, she said, reaching an arm out to help Selena up. The elder Wilder took it. Glad to hear it. You sure? Pandora checked. Drada nodded. I just need to go talk to someone. The sisters smiled and let Drada leave. Now! Drada wandered to the changing rooms. I think some painkillers are in order. Tim had retreated back to the Batcave and, as expected, he felt like shit. She had to find out eventually, and her reaction was perfectly understandable, but damn it. You know, for this stream, I didn't know how much I like this kind of thing. I mostly watch gaming streams, but I'm mostly a reading. Ah. That's fair. I don't know many people who do book reading streams. So book reading, interacting, chilling is actually much more of a chill vibe than gaming streams. Yeah, I have been told that these are a nice vibe. It's hard to balance interacting and reading, but it's kinda, I kinda see this as like a chatting stream, but I have a theme. Or at least I have something to read if no one's in the chat to actually chat. Much chill. Much book. Chill Sundays for everyone. He leant his head back and span around in his chair, his large dual monitors left on a fish tank screensaver. The problem was he couldn't bring himself to regret looking at the file. Yeah. I mean, they always tell you when you're editing books, you should read it out loud, because then you'll find your mistakes. And, well, it's a bit late for that now. It's already published, and also reading out loud is a lot of effort. If I'm doing it for streams, then I'll do it. Maybe I should just do a general editing stream. Then we can look at my mistakes together. The problem was he couldn't bring himself to regret looking at the file, because someone couldn't just do that. No one, no god or mortal, had the right to take hundreds and force them through what Drada had been forced through, what Rosa had been forced through. He didn't care what governments were involved, and to pay for the horror that was Project Trickster. Someone had to pay for the horror that was Project Trickster. I used to do focus streams. The problem is, like, with editing streams, is I need to edit book 5, but I don't want to give out the spoilers, so I can't really do it on stream. It's very awkward. I could like edit short stories and stuff maybe, but not Moon Girl itself, not my main series, which is a shame, because I'd probably be a lot more motivated if I did it on stream. Unless I just say fuck the spoilers and do it anyway. Anyway, that's off streams me thoughts, not on streams me thoughts. At least not mid chapters me streams thoughts. He couldn't leave it now. He knew that would probably piss off Rosa more on top of the fuck up he made this morning. Damn it! He growled at the ceiling. It was at this point the door slowly opened and Dreda stood in the doorway. They both took a breath, and they both said at the same time, "I'm sorry." "Wait, what are you sorry for?" Tim managed to talk first after that. "I overreacted," she said. Tim stared at her. "My ass, you did. You had all rights to do that after what I dug up, and how I treated you after... No, how could you not treat me differently after finding that out? There's no way you could understand, and there's no way you couldn't act differently, so... It's okay. Even if that hacking justifies hurting you, I'm still sorry." Dreda's fists were clenched, her eyes on the floor as silence blanketed the room. Tim just gave a sigh, a small smile on his lips as he shook his head. He was just glad she wasn't more mad at him. That's an idea. Unnecessary apology accepted. And I'm sorry for generally being a noisy bastard who can't keep his hands off a passworded file, he apologized. Yes, that is smart. Mehedi Zeddy has a big brain. Big brain plays. Next page. It's fine. Maybe if I said it was personal, things might have been different, she answered. Awkward silence took over. Tim wasn't about to dispute the point, and, well, he still didn't know how to act around her anymore. It annoyed him that things had changed so much. The last week they spent together was fine, and was likely going to be the same until he saw that file. Dreda walked in while he sat there looking annoyed. She placed herself in her seat and took a breath. If you want, you can ask... If you want to ask me about it, you can. That is true. That is true. I have brought people to my book. She spoke, and he looked up surprised. Don't get me wrong, it's not like it's easy to talk about, but if we're going to work together, we should get it all out the way. You'll understand me better too. Know how to act around you again. He got her meaning. Okay, he sat up, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. I guess there's a few things, but the main one is... how? Can you not want to right the wrong? How can you not think about getting back at them after what they put you through? He was worried by the confused expression she gave him, and even more so by the... right the wrong? Yes, the wrong! What happened to you was horrible! His eyes narrowed and she saw the anger behind them. Not at her, but what happened to her. She smiled a little, spinning away to face her laptop. This is going to sound so wrong to you, but what happened to me, from my point of view, doesn't feel like a wrong? She quietly admitted. What? If he was honest, hearing that made him want to puke. And what she said next didn't help. I believe Dreda is 20 and he is 21 at this point in the story. Because this is 2015 this is based in. Which is when I wrote it. I didn't know any different. It was normal. It wasn't nice, but it was as normal as having to get a job. You don't want to, but you have to. the constant torture was life. It just happened so often, it became routine. It just stop. Tim had to stop her. It confirmed that she was as broken as he thought. Normal. Routine. How? Yeah, they are no children. But they are my children. They will always be my babies, no matter how old they are. How can it get that far? How can it get so bad? His fists clenched and his teeth ground together. How dare they? How could anyone do this to anyone? And to think Rosa was just one of many put through this. It made him sick. It made him angry, but more, it made him want to get back at them even more. Not for his sake, but for hers. No one deserved to be put through what she had been through. Tim? Drada asked, concerned. She knew he would react badly. She maybe didn't understand the severity of what happened to her, but she at least understood what it might sound like to others. The therapist at least told her what it sounded like. It was unreal, and most liked to closing their eyes to the idea of something like this happening, so at least she could imagine what it was like to be Tim right now. Yeah. She tilted her head and rolled her chair closer. Sorry, did I say too much? She said, unsure, and as soon as she was closer, she stiffened and as he put his arms around her. They coiled around her, dragging her and her rolly chair closer until she was right up against his chest. Tim! She squeaked, her face as red as her hair. His arms didn't let up. He could hear his fast but steady heart, feel his breath, his face buried into her hair as he held her like she was about to disappear. I'm sorry, he spoke. You already said that, Rosa fidgeted awkwardly. Not for reading the file, for the fact I can't let this go. I need to make someone pay for what they did to you. Drada wanted to tell him not to, but she couldn't stop him. Just don't let it ruin your life. I won't, he said simply, and for a moment hesitated. Making them pay is second priority anyway. What's first? She asked curiously, getting somewhat annoyed that she hadn't been let go yet. It is cute though, and it's like, oh, look at these babies, they're so cute, they love each other, they're so cute, the office romance. The romance was never intended in this book. This just kind of happened with these two. Just kind of happened. That's always how the best romances happen though with writing. It just kind of just like, you just get two characters together and they're like, we like each other, and I'm like, okay guys, you do that then. He's so cute, yeah. He hesitated, and though she couldn't see it, his cheeks flushed a bit too. He tightened his grip a bit. Fixing you. Making sure you get the happiness you deserve. It doesn't matter. He let her go, and looked away. She sat up and glared at him, pouting like a child that he teased the information like that. I have a cute pout. Brrr, like this. Stop making that face, he growled, pushing the arm of her chair to spin her away. Hey! She scrabbled to grab onto the table to stop herself. You are so mean sometimes. He just gave her a smirk before getting to his feet. I guess we'd better talk to Trish about the schedule. We just knocked it off by a few hours. We just knocked a few hours off. A few hours? It didn't feel like a few hours. What time is it? Tim pulled his phone from his pocket and checked. 2. Shit. She'd missed lunch and an hour of patrol. It's fine, Claire would have explained. We'll get it sorted. He beckoned her to come with him, and she followed to the press office. Chapter 8. Learning. Time to go out and actually learn how to be a hero. But that will be for next week, I think. I have gone over my usual 2 hours, so we're good. We're stopping there. I forgot that I made my first book's chapters quite chunky. I started making them a bit smaller because I find when I'm reading I like things with smaller chapters. Because it's nicer to have more break points and more easy pickup points. And I also find my brain feels a sense of achievement after doing a chapter. So when there's more chapters, you feel like you get a bit better sense of achievement as you go. Yes, I only stream these on Sundays. I stream twice a week. Next time I will be streaming will be on Tuesday, where I will be playing a game called Library of Ruina, which has had a wonderful reaction. Normally I would play 2 games. I would swap between Final Fantasy and a game. But because my Library of Ruina stream did so good, and because I want to ride that algorithm as much as possible, I'm going to play Library of Ruina again. I don't want to wait 2 weeks. I would rather... Yeah, Tuesday! I'd rather ride that and make sure the hype doesn't fall down, basically. And it was fun. I look forward to it. It was a wild-ass game. But a magical library where you get turned into books, murdering people and turning them into books. Great. You have been looking for Library of Ruina streamers very specifically? Well, you're in luck. You can catch up with my other stream before Tuesday, and we'll be diving into it again next Tuesday. It'll be great. Yeah, so I'll be back on Tuesday with that, and then Sunday with more Moon Girl. Yeah, I will look forward to seeing you, hopefully. Other than that, I think that's all we've got. Yeah, I don't think I have any news. That is it for me. Thank you, Mahedi, Zaidi. Tuesday, then Sunday. For being in the chat. Thank you to anyone who lurked. Cleanser of the world, hello! Welcome back. Yeah, thank you to anyone who lurked. Thank you to anyone who watches the VOD. If you have not already, I would very much appreciate you pressing the like button and the subscribe button. It makes me happy. Everyone likes numbers going up. That makes my brain go brrrr. That's it. I had fun. I hope you had fun. This has been Bryony Rose Smith, live from the Forbidden Library. Goodbye.